Hi, this is Graham Helfrich, Technical Advisor Manager for the Engineering Software here at IHS Markit. Welcome to the weekly Did You Know episode, where we learn how to do something of value that you probably didn't know about your IHS Markit engineering software. This week's episode is about adsorption, and specifically what impact it can have on your original gas in place, your EUR, and your recovery factor. The impact of adsorption on your EUR can be tough to estimate, but did you know you can determine this in just minutes using Harmony Enterprise? Let's check it out. Well, first, what is adsorption? We normally think about hydrocarbons stored in the pores of the rock. We call this the free gas. But with some gas wells, there's an additional volume of gas that's attached to the rock surface. This gas storage is called adsorption, and we can think about it like a magnet attached to metal or like lint attached to your sweater. The good news is this attachment to the rock is reversible by reducing the pressure in the reservoir. That'll force the adsorbed gas to detach from the rock surface and flow to the wellbore. That's a little background. In Harmony Enterprise, we can go to adsorption and we see the Langmuir isotherm here, which describes the capacity of the rock to store adsorbed gas. The Langmuir volume is the maximum amount of gas that can be adsorbed at an infinite pressure, in this case, the initial reservoir pressure that we've put in. The Langmuir pressure, or the critical desorption pressure, is the pressure at which 1/2 of the Langmuir volume can be absorbed. And it changes the curve of this line, and therefore it affects the shape of this isotherm. Now, I've honestly never met an engineer who has a measured isotherm for each well. So there's usually a lot of broad assumptions made about these inputs, or if there is a measurement taken, it's typically applied through the field. And this is just part of the reason why it's valuable to use Harmony to understand the effect of adsorption on the future performance that we can expect from our wells. Let's start by doing a simple volumetrics analysis just to see the impact on our original gas in place. So I've just input my simple parameters like my initial pressure, my net pay, my porosity, and I'm going to assume 100 acres of drainage. So what this does is it converts this area into original gas in place volume, about 7.1 BCF. This is ignoring adsorption. This is just a typical conventional gas reservoir. This is how I can estimate my original gas in place volumetrically. This is my free gas. But if I go ahead and turn on adsorption, you notice that we have an additional gas volume, an additional storage mechanism, and that's the adsorbed gas, which is 4.5 BCF. So we can add that to our free gas in the pores, and we get a total original gas in place of 11.6 BCF if we consider adsorption. So we simply see how that can affect our original gas in place volume even with the same drainage area. Now this has nothing to do with an EUR or recovery factor yet. That's what we're going to talk about next. So using the reservoir module, I'm going to make a hypothetical completion so I can do a forecast from it. So I've input my area, my lateral length, my number of fractures, my permeability. And in this case, I'm going to ignore adsorption. So I've disabled it. We do a 30-year forecast, and I get my gas rate here for 30 years. In this case, my EUR is 3.7 BCF. Okay, and again, this I'm using 100 acres here just to be consistent with my volumetrics. Now let's see what happens when we turn adsorption on for this numerical reservoir model. So in this case, I have the exact same model. All I've done is turn on adsorption, and we can see that adds some adsorbed gas here, even though I'm still using the same area. And in this case, the new forecast, with the help of adsorption, climbs to 4.2 BCF. Okay, let's just compare these two. So here I've got a comparison. So the red line is my 30-year forecast if we have no help from adsorption. And then the green forecast is if we have that adsorbed gas contributing. We can just look at this on a cum time plot as well. Okay, so I can see how that adsorbed gas may help with my increase my EUR. So let's just have a little summary about how does this impact recovery factor? You know, how big of a change is this at the end of the day? Okay, so I've got two rows here. I've got the two cases and different inputs and outputs to see what is changing about the well performance if I assume adsorption. So my first row is ignoring adsorption. Again, in both cases, we have the same drainage area, right? In both cases, my free gas is the same at 7.1 BCF, right? That's the gas stored in the pores conventionally. Now, what differs is in the case where I am considering adsorption, I have an additional gas volume that's attached to the rock of 4.5 BCF. That means my total original gas in place is higher in the case where I want to include adsorbed gas. Now, when we ran these two numerical reservoir models, we're able to see that the forecasts indeed are different, and this is how the EURs differ, 3.7 versus 4.3 BCF over 30 years. And what this results in is a different recovery factor, okay? What you may find maybe counterintuitive is that we have a higher recovery factor when we ignore adsorption. And really what it comes down to is, of course, the OGIP compared to the EUR. When we include adsorption, our original gas in place jumps by 63%, right? But when we consider the EUR, with adsorption, our EUR only increases 16%, okay? So we really need to get our reservoir pressure down, down, down to see the big benefits of the adsorbed gas. And that's why we actually get a lower recovery factor with adsorption, because it increases our original gas in place so much. So, you know, I know people have thought about this. You may have done this before, but it's just a really quick and easy way to quantify the impact. Now, the next thing you may want to consider is, what if I have a well with production history? How should I interpret it? Should I include adsorption? Should I ignore it? Well, it's really easy to approach it both ways. In this case, I've taken this shale gas well and I've just done an interpretation using RTA, in this case ignoring adsorption. So we can see we can do flowing material balance, ignoring adsorption. We do our square root time plot. We do our material balance, square root time plot, and we can do our numerical history match. And I can see I get a beautiful history match. I'm ignoring adsorption, and we can create a forecast from this to predict the future performance. Using this scenarios button, we can duplicate our interpretation, but now all we're gonna do is turn on adsorption, and we can see for things like the flowing material balance, we can turn it on and see what impact that may have on our interpretation. Same thing with our square root time plots, our material balance time plots. We can turn on adsorption, and then moving into the numerical model for history matching, we can go down and, of course, turn on those adsorption parameters and consider this forecast. And again, compare the EUR, the original gas in place, and the recovery factor. So what does this really mean for you? Well, now using Harmony Enterprise, you can very quickly quantify the impact of adsorption on your EUR, on your original gas in place, and your recovery factor, right? We can do sensitivities. We may not know what those Langmuir isotherm inputs are, but now we can see how changing them could impact your EUR. The other thing this means is we can either perform this sort of sensitivity and forecast on a single well model like we did here, or you can certainly ramp this all the way up to a multi-well model in Harmony Enterprise that will consider the pressure communication between the wells, again, with or without adsorption. I want to thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please reach out and contact me, and subscribe to be notified of next week's Did You Know episode.